What comes to mind when you think about life in women's prisons? Did you know that there are women's prisons around the world that are as harsh as those for men? Torture, abuse, violence, and aggression are not exceptions in these women's prisons. Today, we will explore the worst women's prisons in the world and explain precisely what makes them the last place any woman would want to live. The Julia Tutwiler Prison, also known as the Angel of Prisons, is located in southern Alabama. It was completed in December 1942 to replace the first state prison known as the Woomer State Penitentiary. The Julia Tutwiler Prison was built to separate hardened criminals from juvenile offenders. However, it has become a hell on earth for the inmates, being a site of repeated abuse over the past 18 years. Research has found that the conditions inside the prison are unconstitutional and inhumane. Physical and sexual abuse is widespread, with 1/3 of the correctional staff reportedly participating in such misconduct. Inmates are said to exchange sex for drugs and other basic necessities, such as toilet paper. Women here face abuse and discrimination based on race and sexual orientation. The right to privacy for female inmates remains an unfulfilled dream, as they bathe and use toilets under the watch of guards. The inmates have inadequate access to healthcare facilities, including medical treatment and health services, raising concerns about their well-being and safety. Although it was built to accommodate only 400 people, reports indicate that the prison is double its capacity, forcing some inmates to spend their nights on the floor. Transparency has been limited in the correctional facilities, as women are sent to solitary confinement as punishment for reporting sexual misconduct and other social injustices. Clinical psychologist Larry F. Wood, hired at the facility in 2012, stated in an interview with the New York Times that he quit his job after witnessing the horrific conditions at the correctional center. Brenda V. Smith, a law professor at American University and a member of the National Commission on the Elimination of Rape in Prisons, stated in an interview with the Associated Press that the challenges faced by women in Julia Tutwiler Prison were extreme compared to what she had witnessed in other women's prisons. Cape Town, South Africa, officially known as Pollsmoor Maximum Security Prison, is one of the most frightening and challenging prisons in the world. It houses male and female inmates in Cape Town, South Africa. The prison is known for hosting the first president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela. What is life like for women behind bars? Pollsmoor is notorious for overcrowding, with 300% over its capacity, according to Grace N. Bear, a middle-aged woman released from prison after being convicted of fraud. 70 prisoners are crammed into a cell designed for 30 people, and inmates sleep on the floor with inadequate water for flushing in the toilets. The cells and showers are dirty and traumatizing for the women. Overcrowding in the cell has created a fertile ground for the spread of infectious diseases such as tuberculosis. Women who had babies before prison are separated from their children, some less than 3 months old, in precarious situations with no one to care for them, according to Elle, who works in the women's section. Limited health care is provided to inmates, as the facility has only one psychologist, one dentist, and one doctor for the entire prison. Inmates fight over tobacco, food, and hygiene products, and guards punish those who engage in these fights by hitting the tips of their fingers with brooms. Some violent inmates beat and sexually assault others when placed in the same cell. To survive in Pollsmoor Prison, inmates find prison mothers, who are female guards that provide medications, food, and anything else you need in exchange for deposits into their ShopRite accounts. A group called Kitchen Ladies consists of inmates responsible for running the prison kitchen and doing as they please. They control both food and tobacco, using them to buy what they want from other prisoners. HM Holloway Prison, the largest women's prison in Western Europe until its closure in 2016, was located in Holloway, London, England, and was administered by Her Majesty's Prison Service. Established in 1852 as a rehabilitation centre for both male and female offenders in Holloway, it was created due to the increasing number of female prisoners and the closure of Newgate Prison. The facility was designed to incarcerate women and young offenders to meet the growing demand for space, housing around 500 inmates as of January 2008. While serving their sentences, HM Holloway inmates were admitted to various educational programs, including painting, gardening, and the British Industrial Cleaning Service, BX. Additionally, the Prison Advice and Care Trust organised family and friendly visits for the inmates. One prisoner, known as Dana Mitford, under Regulation 18B during World War II, was allowed to live with her husband, Sir Oswald Mosley, in the prison houses until her release in 1943. But was life as positive for the prisoners in HM Holloway? Numerous allegations have been made that staff and prison managers sexually assaulted, abused, intimidated, and harassed inmates. According to an investigation conducted in March 2002, managers at HM Holloway were transferred to other prisons as these allegations were found to be valid, according to a June 2003 inspection report. The sanitary conditions of the facility were criticized as prison staff were untrained and security for the inmates was lamentable. There were over 35 reported cases of self-harm weekly in the facility, as well as high levels of poor mental health among the inmates. Prisoners were executed in HM Holloway by hanging, with 5 judicial executions carried out between 1903 and 1955. Their bodies were buried in unmarked graves on the prison grounds. The closure of the prison occurred after the death of Sarah Reed, who strangled herself on January 11, 2016, after suffering mental health issues while incarcerated. Located in the rural northeastern suburb of Perth, West Swan, Western Australia, Bandiup Women's Prison is one of 2 prisons for sentenced or remand women in the metropolitan Perth area. It was officially opened in January 1970. The other prison, Melaleuca Women's Prison, was initiated in 2016. Bandiup Women's Prison houses sentenced prisoners and those on remand. Initially known as the Bandiup Training Centre, it was established as a rehabilitation centre for women and opened in 1969, originally accommodating only 68 prisoners. Although it is operated as a maximum security prison, only 10% of the inmates are classified as maximum security. The prison is inspected by the State Office of the Custodial Inspector every 3 years, just like Peamore Prison. Like Peamore, overcrowding remains an ongoing challenge at Bandiup Women's Prison, despite various reforms made to alleviate it. After a state parliamentary debate in 1998 regarding conditions at Bandiup, when it was revealed that prisoners were sleeping on mattresses on the floor, new units were added in 2003, increasing cell capacity to accommodate up to 180 inmates. Due to the rise in inmate numbers, bunk beds were installed in several units. Recent photos from the prison cells show that the beds are stacked so close to the ceiling that the overhead light is just 10 centimeters above the top of the bed, preventing inmates from sitting up. Before the introduction of bunk beds, inmates in Units 1 and 2 slept on the floor with their heads next to the toilet. Prisoners are forced to sit on the floor as the cells lack chairs or tables. The shortage of bathing facilities, phone access, and nursing services has become evident due to the increased population and limited space in the prison. However, the establishment of the Melaleuca Remand and Reintegration Facility has helped relieve pressure on Bandiup. Do you expect life to be good in a prison in North Korea, which mainly houses political prisoners? The Kachon concentration camp is located on the outskirts of the city of Kachon, behind a hill east of the city center. It was mainly built to punish people for lesser crimes and political prisoners who criticized the government. The large prison complex, surrounded by a 4-meter-high wall topped with barbed wire, houses a shoe factory, a rubber factory, a leather factory, and a clothing factory. Prisoners are forced to work in these factories as slaves, under harsh conditions, and must meet production quotas. Unlike other prisons where prisoners have rights, in the Kachon concentration camp, they only have fear. According to Lee Sunok's testimony to the U.S. Senate Judiciary Committee, prisoners are at the mercy of the guards. They are forced to work 18 hours a day in the camp's factories, sometimes spending the nights there to meet necessary production quotas. This results in some becoming incapacitated due to accidents or torture in the factories. Overcrowding and lack of basic amenities are evident in the Kachon concentration camp, where up to 90 prisoners are forced to sleep in a 30-square-meter room. 300 may share a single bathroom, and prisoners can go several months without bathing. Lee Sunok reported that it was common for prisoners to eat raw rats due to hunger, as only 100 grams of broken corn and salt soup are served 3 times a day. Pregnant women are forced to terminate their pregnancies. Lee Sun says she witnessed newborns being killed shortly after birth. Torture is shared among the detainees, with the camp having 78 punishment cells where prisoners are locked up for several days, some dying immediately after being released from the cells. Lee Sunok laments how she endured water torture until she fainted. The guards publicly execute prisoners in front of other detainees. The La Mesa prison is located near the border between Mexico and the United States, serving as a correctional facility in Tijuana, Baja California, Mexico. The La Mesa prison is mainly known for its continuous rebellions, and women in the prison are known to face some of the most challenging conditions. One notable inmate is Chalino Sanchez, a famous Mexican musician accused of human trafficking, who spent several years in prison. He claims that his musical journey began there, composing songs for his cellmates. Stories report that a Catholic nun, known as La Mama, also spent over 30 years in La Mesa prison caring for the female inmates. She was seen cooking and taking care of the prisoners on various occasions. The prison gained a reputation for its operational systems, which differ from other neighboring prisons. In 1970, inmates requested permission to build their own apartments due to overcrowding in the cells. Additionally, prisoners received support to start small businesses and establish their shops. Inmates can move freely from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. around the town square. The Reintegration Center operates under what is called the DW philosophy, which believes that punishment is not the best option for helping inmates reintegrate. They also must have some involvement in decision-making. Inmates have access to educational facilities, vocational training, and recreational programs. Several riots have occurred in La Mesa prison, resulting in the deaths of several inmates. The most famous riot happened on September 13, 2008, resulting in the deaths of 3 inmates. The cause of the riot was the death of another inmate during a search for weapons and drugs in the prison. A few days later, on September 18th, the second riot started due to the denial of access to drinking water as punishment for the first riot, resulting in about 19 lives lost.